One decision can change everything, and this episode proved it. Asterisk, when people talk about the chi, they talk about realness. So they talk about choices, pressure, and how love and pain often show up at the same table. Season 7, Episode 5 didn't waste a second. Gave us tension, emotion, and those moments where silence says more than words. If you're the kind of viewer who watches with your chest tight and your fingers crossed, you know what I mean? Let's break down what went down. Quickly, but deeply. Asterisk, this episode dropped us into the middle of chaos and calm. A strange balance that the chi does so well. It started quiet but carried weight in every scene. The choices made by each character felt heavier than usual, not just for the story, but for their futures. We didn't get big explosions or wild twists, but what we got was just as powerful. Honesty, tension, and people either standing tall or falling apart. Asterisk, one of the first moments that stood out was the awkward energy between Emmett and Kiesha. There's love there, you can feel it. But love doesn't always mean peace. They're struggling with trust, with timing, and with the reality of trying to build a future when the past keeps knocking at the door. Kiesha's trying to be strong, but you can see the cracks in her voice. And Emmett. He's trying, but trying might not be enough. That first scene told us this episode is going to pull at your heart. Asterisk, then there's Douda. Every time he shows up, the energy in the room changes. He's calm, but dangerous. In this episode, his power moves are less about violence and more about control. Psychological control. He knows people are watching him, waiting for him to slip. But he's 5 steps ahead. You can see it in the way he speaks, the way he watches others speak. He's not just playing chess, he's building the board. Asterisk, Kevin's storyline also took a meaningful step this week. He's caught between 2 lives, one where he's trying to grow into someone better, and one that keeps reminding him of where he came from. You can feel his inner conflict. He's maturing, yes, but he's still young, and the weight on his shoulders is too heavy for someone his age. This episode gave him some quiet moments, the kind that show character growth without shouting it. It's the look in his eyes. It's the pause before he speaks. That's where the real story is. Asterisk, and let's not forget Papa. Man, Papa is still trying to find his footing. After everything that's happened, he's looking for direction, for purpose. He's been the emotional backbone of this friend group before, but now he's looking like the one who needs support. His scenes are short but full of meaning. There's one moment, just a look, where you see everything he's trying to hide, asterisk altogether. Episode 5 didn't use fast pacing or big shocks. Instead, it gave us something more intimate. Every conversation, every side glance, every silence, it all mattered. This episode asked the question, what happens when love, fear, and loyalty all crash into each other? And it gave us just enough answers to keep us hungry for more. Love doesn't always whisper sweet things. Sometimes, it asks the hardest questions out loud. Asterisk, love in the chi isn't picture perfect. It's layered, messy, and sometimes painful. In this episode, love is everywhere, but not always in ways that feel good. This is the kind of love that tests people. Doesn't come with a bow, it comes with baggage. And episode 5 gave us a front row seat to the kind of emotional weight. That real love brings the hard kind, the quiet kind. It's kind that shows up when things aren't easy. Asterisk, let's start with Emmett and Kiesha. These two are trying to make it work, but there's a storm quietly building between them. Kiesha wants stability, honesty, and someone who truly shows up. Emmett says the right things, but when it's time to prove them, he hesitates. She can feel Kiesha checking out emotionally in moments. Her eyes look away before her words do. It's that kind of subtle disconnection. That's real. It's love on the edge. Not quite broken, but definitely shaking. Asterisk, there's this one scene, soft and short, where they sit next to each other, but there's space between them that isn't physical, it's emotional. They aren't yelling, they aren't even fighting, but that silence. That's the kind that says everything. You don't need dramatic arguments to show to people drifting. All you need is one long pause and a quiet glance in the wrong direction. The writers knew what they were doing here. They let the silence speak louder than dialogue. Asterisk elsewhere. We saw Jada and Darnell still trying to walk the line between past pain and present peace. Their scenes in this episode were brief, but they carried emotional weight. Jada's learning how to forgive without forgetting. Gosh. Darnell's learning how to love without control. Gosh. That's a powerful arc because it shows love isn't just for the young. It's also for people who've been through heartbreak and still choose to try again. And in a show like The Chi, that kind of mature, grown-up love, that hits different. Asterisk, and then there's the love between friends. A kind of love people overlook. Take Kevin and his crew. They don't always say I love you, but it's there. It's in the way they show up. It's in Papa trying to give advice even when his own world is spinning. It's in how Kevin checks in, even when he's battling his own stuff. The love between friends on The Chi feels real because it's not flashy. It's loyal, protective, and sometimes awkward. Asterisk, but love also hurts. It hurts when people don't meet you where you are. Hurts when you want someone to change and they can't or won't. This episode doesn't shy away from that. It shows us love as a risk, as a gamble, as something that asks for patience, forgiveness, and strength. That's what makes it beautiful and brutal at the same time. Asterisk, in episode 5, love doesn't save the day. It doesn't fix every problem. But it's there, pushing people to grow, breaking them when they lie, and holding them up when nothing else can. It's the most human thing in this episode. And it reminds us why we care about these characters in the first place. Asterisk, the streets weren't loud in this episode. But they were watching. And sometimes being watched is more dangerous than being chased. Asterisk, in episode 5, the conflict wasn't about gunfire or car chases. It was about the quiet tension, the kind that wraps around your chest and makes you hold your breath. The kind of pressure that builds when people have to act but don't know who's watching or waiting. It's that invisible war The Chi does so well. And in this episode, the danger didn't shout. It whispered. And that made it even more real. Asterisk, let's talk about Douda. Every time he steps into a room, there's a chill. Not because he's loud or violent in this episode, because he's calculated. His silence holds more weight than other characters' threats. He's not just running the streets anymore, he's running psychology. He's making moves that aren't obvious. Power for Douda isn't about swinging fists. It's about owning the space, the fear, the moment. Asterisk, there's a scene dark lighting, low energy where he barely says anything. But you feel the message. He doesn't need to scream. It's just his presence shifts the atmosphere. Someone makes a joke, nobody laughs. That's real power when fear walks in before you even open your mouth. And in this episode, Douda is playing chess with real people's lives. You can feel the weight of it, even when nothing explodes. Asterisk, meanwhile, there's something bubbling in the background with Rob and his decisions. He's not just trying to survive, he's trying to rise. Every move upward feels like a step deeper into something dangerous. He's not moving recklessly, but you can tell. The next mistake could cost him everything. In this episode, he's torn between loyalty and ambition. And ambition. That's a tricky thing in The Chi. It can feed you or kill you. Asterisk, conflict. Also hits in the smaller scenes. Emmett, for example, is fighting on a different front. Not on the streets, but in his own home. Trying to be a provider, trying to be respected, but the pressure is loud. You can see it wearing him down. And the more he tries to hold it together, the more it threatens to fall apart. He's not in a gunfight, but he's in a war. And that's what The Chi does better than most shows. It shows us the quiet wars. It's the daily battles that don't make headlines, that leave scars anyway. Asterisk, Kevin's storyline is also creeping toward conflict. Not with fists, but with identity. He's outgrowing people, places, and maybe even parts of himself. And when that happens, it stings. He wants something bigger, something freer. But the environment he's in keeps pulling him back. It's not a chase scene, but it's definitely a race between who he is and who he's trying to be. Asterisk, and let's not forget the streets themselves. The Chi has always treated the neighborhood like a character. This episode gave us shadows, tight alleyways, tense silence, looks that linger too long. You don't need a gunshot to feel danger. Sometimes all it takes is someone looking at you too long, or someone not looking at you at all. Asterisk, this was a quiet episode in terms of action. But the conflict was bubbling under the surface like a slow-cooked storm. You could feel it. One wrong move, one wrong word, and things could explode. She knows how to build that slow heat, and in episode 5, they turned the flame low but steady. You just know it's going to boil over soon. Sometimes the most powerful person in the room isn't the loudest, it's the one holding back tears and still choosing to show up. This episode of The Chi didn't need anyone to play the hero, just needed people to be honest, and that honesty hit hard. The beauty of this show is how it gives its characters permission to be soft, broken, conflicted, still strong. And in episode 5, we saw that strength up close, especially in Kiesha, Emmett, and these three carried something heavy, and the way they walked with it, that's what stayed with me. Asterisk, let's start with Kiesha. There's one word for her this episode, it's restraint. She's clearly feeling everything, the disappointment, the pressure, the worry, but she's not yelling or breaking down. She's just there, holding it all together, even as it threatens to spill out. In one moment, she looks at Emmett like she's searching for the man she knows he could be, but fearing he may never become. That expression, one part hope, one part heartbreak, tells us more than any monologue could. Kiesha is done begging for consistency. She wants something real, stable, and safe. And when she doesn't get it, she doesn't explode. She withdraws. That's silence. That's louder than anger. Asterisk, then there's Emmett. He's trying, but he's tired. He wants to be a provider, a man, a leader. But every time he stands up, life knocks him sideways. What makes Emmett interesting in this episode is not that he fails, it's how aware he is of his failures. Can see it in his body language. He's not cocky, he's not blind. He knows he's falling short, and that quiet shame makes his struggle hit harder. There's one scene where he's listening more than speaking. And you realize this guy's learning. Slowly, painfully, but learning. Emmett's not the man he wants to be yet, but at least now he's starting to realize what it takes. Asterisk, and then we have Papa, sweet, searching. It's torn up Papa. He's the one who usually gives advice, speaks big truths, tries to hold people together. But in this episode, he looks lost, and it's so real. You can tell he wants to be grounded again, to find that faith or fire that used to drive him. But now, he's doubting everything. His beliefs, his place in the world, maybe even his worth. There's one moment where he's alone, and for a second he just stops. No mask, no front. It's just a young man who's tired of pretending he's okay. And that vulnerability, that's bravery. Asterisk, these characters didn't have to scream or throw punches to make you feel something. They just had to be human. And that's what the Chi does so well. It reminds us that pain isn't always loud, that strength isn't always muscle, and that sometimes the bravest thing a person can do is admit they're not fine and still keep showing up for the people they love. Asterisk, in episode 5. Kiesha showed us how love can look like quiet boundaries. Emmett showed us how growth starts with guilt. And Papa reminded us that even the strongest hearts sometimes need a place to rest. These are the stories that stay with you after the credits roll, not because they're dramatic, but because they're true. Asterisk.